Hello everybody. I'm Madonna. Welcome to Gathering Folds. Today I am folding a brand new pattern that I've never folded before. This is actually one of the patterns that'll be in the Advent of Tess 2026 ebook. So you get a preview and also a preview of like what themes are going to be showing up in Advent of Tess this year. Oh, I do want to share. I got a piece that I folded in one of these live streams on the cover of Mathematics Magazine, the April issue for this year. So that is really cool. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in to folding this pattern after I show you the tiling. So the tiling is an abstraction of the origami tessellation, and it basically shows you what different positions are in the pattern, what shapes they are, how they're connected. In this one, you can see the repeats of the hexagon are way far apart. There's 4 rhombi in between. There's also these stars of rhombi. Those showed up in Advent of Tess 2025 as isoarea patterns, but in this case, they are going to, like, the pattern is more cohesive. You only see one version of the hexagon. There's also these loops of just rhombi. So we have loops of 6 rhombi, loops of 4 rhombi. We also have the typical Hex-Tri-Rhomb Tri loop of 6 alternating triangles and rhombi. It's just a lot going on in this pattern. And one way to think about it is that if you had this group of 4 rhombi and you substituted a hexagon in the middle, leaving 2 white triangles on the sides, this would be precisely the Hex-Tri-Rhomb Tri tiling. So with that out of the way, this is a new structure for me to fold in that has tiling breaks eventually, but it doesn't have them everywhere. So that'll be fun to figure out. And I'm going to go ahead and get started folding. And yes, welcome Erlu. Glad you could join us. So this is a 80 division standard grid. And I'm starting with an open hexagon in the middle. And I'm basically going to narrate a bit, mostly fold. If you have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. I do have an eye on the chat. And it's going to start out as a pretty familiar pattern, which I actually taught, I think, in Advent of Tess 2022, the first round, which is fairy rings. And then I'll get into another pattern that I call air gap that I'm going to be including in Advent of Tess this year. And then I'm going to be making a variation that turns it into loopholes. So you can always find different ways to repeat things. So I've got that first hexagon. I'll go ahead and zoom in a bit. And yeah, so for this pattern, we have 1 hexagon position, 3 triangle positions, one of which is going to be a closed triangle. These ones closest to the hexagon. The other 2 are going to be open triangles. And I've actually got 4 distinct rhombus positions, 3 of which are going to be closed rhombi, and 1 of which is an open rhombus. So that's fun. And because I'm working right around the center, I'm going to leave that pleat overlap, resolve it on the other side. So with this size of grid, I do not expect to get through the whole thing in one sitting, but we'll see how far I get in an hour. And here I'm doing a compound wrap instead of reordering the overlap. It's actually a little easier for me now that I am very familiar with compound wraps. Just put in the wrap. And it gives me more space over here. So like I said earlier, this first bit is equivalent to fairy rings. And taking all of these overlaps and eventually the compound wrap, turning them into closed rhombus twists. One of the challenging things about working on a larger grid is that since I'm using bigger paper, I can't reach into the middle with fingers on both sides with the same hand. So I'm really depending on both hands to work together to put these twists in place. And I get that nice satisfying snap of the paper as I move those pleats out to the edge. And smooth it out. Fun fact, now that I've been using the same bone folder for, well, since 2019 or so, it actually is worn more on this side, where I smooth the twists, than on this side, which I sometimes use for gridding. And then next thing's got to be an open triangle twist on the back. Do this one first, because it sets up that single wide spacing. I'm folding over the existing pleat. And actually, since, well, okay. I can do a little bit of a shortcut here because I'm still close to the center, which is folding all of these triangles on this side and then flipping over. And in the Advent of Tess pattern, that's going to be an open triangle in between. But in Loopholes, that is an open rhombus. So it changes where you put the symmetry points. And then for the air-gapped pattern, like that open triangle would be a symmetry point. This closed rhombus on the other side would be a symmetry point. But not for loopholes. One of the convenient things about this tiling that makes it work well, even though there's so much going on, is that the symmetry points are actually, except for the hexagon, not inside of twists for loopholes. Which is very convenient for designing because pleats around a space can have whatever distances on whatever sides. Not so inside of a twist. So I'm going around putting my 12 open triangles. Good morning, Zach. Good morning, Mask. Glad y'all could make it. Putting in these 12 open triangles, and I'm thinking about, okay, when I teach this as a tutorial in Advent of Tess, I'm probably going to teach it as you flip over and resolve the wrap every time. But that is working on a small grid where it's easier to flip over, and it's training people to resolve the wraps immediately. As opposed to me, I already know, and I know that these wraps are not going to be a problem. So the way I fold things for myself is a little different from how I would teach it in a tutorial. But since this is a demonstration, well, you get the alternate version. And here, I have two choices. I can either do a compound wrap off of this triangle twist to get things to settle down, or I can go ahead and put in the next triangle too. And only one of those will not have to be redone immediately. Okay. And now I'm going to turn all my compound wraps into closed rhombus twists. And the triangle wraps I'm going to leave alone because that is what's necessary for this ring around the center. The triangle wraps are going to become open rhombus twists. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, you could do them as open triangles and have them as a symmetry point, but that's a different pattern. Okay, so now I want to see what's up with the next intersections. I think the most reasonable thing to do is fold that open rhombus. And this is feeding into my loop of six rhombus twists. I've got a compound wrap behind. I have a compound wrap ahead too. If you see me looking to the side, I'm looking at the crease pattern. And I could read that there would be a compound wrap on either side, not just because there's a rhombus twist on the back in the crease pattern, but because those pleats hit at 60 degrees. So now with the open rhombus, these other rhombi, I think, are going to finish out my distinct positions in the pattern. I'm going to go ahead and fold both of those. Those are closed rhombi on the back. And then it's a question of which way do I work my way around? Do I go down this way? Do I go out that way? And I'm going to go down this way because in this set of parallel pleats, this one, if I run a pleat this way, hits stuff. And this one, if I run a pleat this way, does not. So I'm starting up here, working my way down. So I'm starting on this pleat that's going to the other side. And I'll flip over to work on that. Okay, so that's going to be another rhombus on this side. My position of twofold rotational symmetry is right there in the pattern. So I'll pop in a triangle wrap. And I'm going to do a whole rhombus twist because it does not cause any overlaps back this way. So I'm just feeding in a new pleat. And I can follow this wrap on up the set of parallel pleats. Flipping over, that's across my symmetry point from this closed rhombus. So it'll be another closed rhombus. And I'll do a triangle wrap into this area that already has a triangle wrap. Make sure everything's flat before I try to smooth it out. And that pair of triangle wraps will turn into an open rhombus twist, and I'm going to get a compound wrap up above. Cool. So we're at a true tiling break. I'm going to have a whole ring with just rhombus twists. Kind of wild to have a whole ring with no triangles. Just rhombi. Now I'm back to a repeat of where I was. And I might be able to streamline this, but I'm just gonna go in the standard sequence, at least for now. Like I might be able to avoid one paper flip per edge, maybe two. So here I have to flip and flip back to do this rhombus, which I could technically have done first and had a wrap above, but it all works out in the end. It's, I think, easier to find the spacing. And then I'm flipping back. Setting up the open rhombus off of that pair of triangle wraps. I don't think I'd actually done the pair of triangle wraps feeding into an open rhombus before. Always a closed one, and that comes out to the same as two pleats feeding into a closed hexagon. But if I did want to streamline, what I would do is go ahead and fold the other rhombus that's on this side immediately. And I got the spacing from the previous repeat. And that's a compound wrap up above. So if you look at this, the corner is at the end of the slit. So I made sure my valley fold came to the end of the slit. Yeah, closed and open triangle, closed and open rhombus. There's only one hexagon position, or I would have fit in closed and open hexagon. And now I've just flipped the paper over once, and I can get both of the rhombi on this side. And that actually is nice, doing just 2 flips of the paper per set of parallel pleats instead of 4. I may as well do it again. Setting up the rhombus on the second pleat, running or having a wrap back under the first. I mean, I could do an overlap, but may as well do a compound wrap. And so I think what we've seen so far is that for all of these twists, all of their neighbors are on the opposite side. You're never seeing a twist on the same side as a twist that shares the pleat. So that typically increases pattern density and gets you more pattern per unit of grid. So you'll see that a lot in my designs. We're coming around to the end of this set of parallel pleats very soon. 2 rhombi to go. So now I'm putting in this triangle from the compound, or sorry, rhombus from the compound wrap. There's already the rhombus below. So I go straight to the compound wrap. And that rhombus finishes the ring around the center. I've got these pairs all the way around. And then the next ring, let's see. I know I'll get to close this loop. Let's see. So this pleat is going to act the same as this pleat. So it's going to go to an open triangle. Let's look at that from the other side. So this pleat is around the symmetry point from this pleat. So end of the slit. And I've got my valley fold that's hitting at 60 degrees. So I'm doing a compound wrap. And open triangle twist. And I'm pretty sure this ring around the center will be a pseudo tiling break, because this is my star of rhombi, and that takes 4 spaces to go around. Dances with Aardvarks is trying to find the name of someone who does curved folding. I haven't done much curved folding, but Ekaterina Lukasheva is like the OG, the queen of curved folding. And then there's a bunch of other people who do it as well. And then, yeah, heat wave going on in Europe. The weather's actually not that bad here in Pennsylvania. We had 1.5 inches of rain yesterday, which was really good because we've been averaging well under 1/2 inch a week for the last 1.5 months, 2 months, something like that. Oh, it was a Katerina? Nice. Yeah. Yeah, one interesting thing about folding and heat waves is that paper behaves differently in different humidities. So right now my paper is nice and crisp. If it was super humid, I would be telling a different story. So let's see, in here, because my position of 3-fold rotational symmetry is in here. And I've got to get out of this. I'm going to get 1 more full rhombus and 1 triangle wrap. So I'll focus on this open rhombus up here. And I'm looking for, okay, 1, 2, 3 spaces from the end of the slit. 1, 2, 3 spaces to get that started. And then that'll wrap. Good, the spacing is consistent. And with these open rhombus twists, what I'm noticing, this one that has all the twists around it completed, 2 of them are closed rhombi on the back and 2 of them are open triangles. So this triangle wrap has to be for an open triangle twist. Yeah, I've actually been looking at a YouTube channel or a program called American Resiliency that interprets climate forecasts for mostly the US. They've done some work in other places. I think they have a video on Europe as well. And she has some really great ideas around like what you can do locally to adapt to what's probably coming to your area, in terms of heat waves and rainfall and storm intensity and all kinds of other measures. I got really lucky in the place where I chose to live, near Pittsburgh, that it's an area that will be a bit less impacted and has capacity to take in more people. So I'm focusing on learning how to grow stuff where I am, and generally be prepared. There's also things like more tornadoes coming to my area, but you can prepare for that. But yeah, particularly with the El Nino weather pattern shaping up for this year again, after another one like 2-3 years ago, it's going to be a hot summer. I think I can say that with confidence. Okay, so we've got these offset rhombi with the pairs of open triangles on both sides of our symmetry point. We can continue on around. Yeah, that's tough when you really want to fold, but there's too much sweat. Yep. Yeah, for a little bit, well, for one whole summer, my office didn't really have AC. Now we've installed a whole house AC. None of the house had it before. And what I ended up, oh, I put that in the wrong place. Talking too much, not paying attention. What I ended up doing is strapping an ice pack to my lower back when it got above 80 in the office. Fahrenheit. Which does effectively cool you down. Oh, and the other tip that I know about cooling you down quickly, ice packs are more effective if they can touch more of your blood, basically. So places where blood is flowing a lot, like wrists, armpits, groin, those are all good targets for cooling with ice packs. But the low back also is easy to strap to and less annoying. And here I opted for a pleat overlap instead of a compound wrap because it's easier to fold, easy to open. It was a friendly pleat overlap on the side I needed to open it. So that was straightforward to do. So now, being very careful, 1, 2, 3 spaces, not looking away, double counting, 1, 2, 3 spaces to where the valley hits. And then triangle wraps on either side, one of which is waiting for the next ring around the center. And I am making very good progress, but it's about to slow down in the next couple rings, partly because one of those rings is going to be a double ring to get the hexagon, and it's just higher twist density. I have these great big loopholes that I just got past, which made it look like I'm folding faster than I am. Yeah, so the question is, are there a finite number of primitive folds on an isometric grid? And I would say, so I'm guessing that that is an equivalent question to how many possible twists are there? And, but it could also mean how many different twist shapes are possible. And there's a couple answers to that. One answer is there are infinitely many sizes of every shape of twist. So I've got both closed and open triangles, closed and open rhombi here. You can go double open, triple open, quadruple open of any of the shapes of twists. But as far as the number of different shapes, that also doesn't have limits. You can do whatever convex shape you want that is composed of the grid triangles. And I'm saying convex shape because if you have something, a shape with a dent in it, then you would need to break the paper in order to fold it. And then made up of equilateral triangles, that constraint is if you want the pleats to be on the grid. If you don't care if the pleats are on the grid, well, then you can include right angle corners in your shapes. I have a kite twist that I've done a pattern with. But yeah, you can do teardrop shapes, and I mean, the teardrop is pretty similar to a diamond, but you can mess with all of these edges, like the side lengths of the shapes. You can have really crazy things. And yeah, just really go wild with the different shapes that are possible on a isometric equilateral triangle grid. But then you might start saying, well, all of these quadrilaterals are either rhombuses, parallelograms, kites, trapezoids. You can categorize these things and say, well, we've seen trapezoids. If it's a 1, 2, 1, 3 trapezoid, I don't care. I've already seen a 1, 1, 1, 2 trapezoid. So it kind of depends how you count. Oh yeah. Yeah, you can have very complex counting exercises in tessellations. One of the ones that I've been working on for a couple years is how many patterns can be folded with only open hexagon and closed triangle twists. And I've limited that to patterns that repeat on a 80 grid division, or a 80 division grid. And at first I thought there were only about 20 of them. And then I looked harder and I found 40. And then I looked harder and I found 80. So I will not be folding all 80. That'll be an interesting journey to see when I actually get those finished. A lot of my folding big pieces live videos are in that series. You would count like a topologist. I mean, they're all planar. So I'm curious what you mean by that. There's one limitation with the convex stipulation is that you can have up to 6 sides and 6 pleats. Number of sides is equal to the number of pleats. And if you allow for pleats that are perpendicular to the grid, so it's still grid-based, but some pleats are perpendicular, then you can get up to 12 pleats. And you can have the different regularities of things inside of that. So basically, what I say about infinitely many different twists is, sure, there's infinitely many different twists, but there's a finite number that use a reasonable amount of grid. And reasonable will be different for every person. Likewise, there's an infinite number of origami tessellation patterns, but there's some very large finite number that can be folded with repeats within whatever number of divisions you choose to stipulate, 64, 80, whatever your personal number is. So there's some flexibility, or there is a limit. Yeah, rhombus, diamond, hexagon, but then there's hybrid hexagons of various flavors and mixed depth hexagons and all the rest. Okay, now we're getting into repeats of the center coming up next. So we've got these 4 layers around the center. Now we're going to see the repeats. And I'm going to start, actually we're going to see some close triangles too. Okay. This plate needs a closed triangle with the corner at the corner of the rhombus slit. Focus on this pleat overlapping with everything down below. And we're adding 1 pleat out here. And then, let's see, let's do this on this side. So that rhombus, this rhombus, the valley is going to hit 2 spaces out. It looks like we're leaving this hexagon for when we get all the way back around. And we added a second pleat down through here. So that's the double thickness of the double ring around the center. And yeah, absolutely take breaks, come back, do whatever you need to do. And then I've got an open triangle here. And this is going to be a closed rhombus. I've got these 2 pleats that are crossing the set of parallel plates, and it's kind of up for debate whether I flip over and try to fold something right here or go ahead and do the rhombus on the back. I'm going to go for this rhombus on the back. I'll leave this pleat folded through on top and get the wrap through down there, and these guys come, or this overlap is migrating down. And then I can keep migrating this pleat as a single. I see that all of these open rhombi have a notch taken out of the side by an open triangle. That's what's needed here. And notice I'm opening this back pleat and then restoring it before the new pleat goes through. And then I can keep moving this one, and that will give me, I'll have an extra space there. So open up, immediately close that pleat, put in the new pleat down here. And so I've successfully moved one of these two pleats that's crossing all of my other pleats all the way down to the next set of parallel pleats. And now I'm going to have a bunch of rhombus twists, so I may as well set them all up in one go. And they're all going to be closed rhombus twists. They're going to have triangle wraps in between. This pleat's going away with that triangle wrap. And remember, I've done a lot of patterns, but I haven't used this tiling before. So this is me following the paper and figuring that out. And also learning lessons from other patterns. And then flipping over, both of these open triangles need their open triangle buddies. But this wrap is going to be for a rhombus twist. And I don't think, no, should I? Should I not? No. Okay. I got the two right-handed ones because all my right-handed twists are on one side and all my left-handed are on the other. So this is the one poking out into the corner. We're good. So from here, this top pleat, it's going to be another closed triangle. And I could set up the open hexagon on the other side and have this as a triangle wrap. But since I'm over here, I may as well make it easier for me to find that open hexagon. And I can even go ahead and set up a bit more. And I'm just setting up here, not squashing. And since it's me, I'm going to go ahead and set up more of the pleats. There we go. See that open hexagon hole? That's exactly what it is. and then the closed triangle. And now let's see, off of this rhombus, the triangle is there. Remember restoring this top plate first before the impact of the bottom plate. And then open the next plate that I'm working across, restore the top plate, run the new pleat out. And another open triangle. Restore this plate. And closed triangle. And I don't have to do anything with that plate because I've already gotten past it. So we've got this closed try, open try, closed rhomb, open try, closed try. It's mirror image sequence. And then we can come back and get all of these 4 rhombus twists. And this pleat that looks like it's in the way will turn out to be part of a triangle wrap. And remember, we do see different spacings, different relationships between different rhombi in this stripe. We've seen the stripe over here, so we get the same stripe again. So for a ring around the center that has a lot of twists, this is going pretty fast, actually. And a triangle. And setting up for the hexagon. It's nice to at least set up the pleats that go through a bunch of stuff before you flip over. And I know that that has to be an accordion pleat because I've folded closed triangles around open hexagon twists so many times that I have that particular spacing memorized. And open triangle. And closed rhombus. And open triangle. And closed triangle. And all those wraps turn into rhombi. So I'm functionally doing a single layer and then a second single layer immediately after for this ring around the center. And I'm setting up these wraps, but I'm not folding them all the way over yet because I know this pleat is going to go away. In 3, 2, 1, it's gone. And now those wraps, the ones that are actually triangle twists, can now be folded into triangles. And that's a very fast process. And next layer. So I'll probably do one ring around the center after this one, but like I said earlier, probably not in one sitting. I'll do one more side in the video. Oh, and a fun fact that I'm noticing, the pleat from this open hexagon twist, the mountain is going one space below the valley. The one from the center went one space above the valley, so this is shifted by 2 grid spacings over all this distance, which is why I was comfortable using an aligned grid. And I could read that off of the crease pattern. And as far as the squashing order of these rhombi, it can be either order. Last time, I think the last 2 times I did it from the top down. This time I'm doing it from the bottom up. They feel roughly equivalent because these rhombi are decently far apart. And yeah, there we are. 1, 2, 3, 4 edges around this ring around the center. And I'm going to call it there. We can all go and enjoy the rest of our day. So that's what's going on with Loopholes. It's one of these patterns that is an alternate ending. Oh, that's nice. I didn't realize that I would get these kind of rings that are separated and then whole other rings. Might not have enough paper to finish the outer rings because I wasn't planning on that, but it's always interesting what you see in these patterns. So happy folding, everyone. I'll share one more time. On the cover of Mathematics Magazine is a tessellation named Cosmic Vision that I folded in one of these live streams. So that's the exciting news for this week. I just got that about a week ago when I got home from a trip. So happy folding, everyone, and I'll see you next week.